Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 60 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author, media and PR coach, copywriter, editor and proofreader, and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success tips for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. In this episode, I interview Cayla Mackey and Dave Pittman from Unicorn Goods, whose tagline is the world's largest vegan store in Rhode Island, New England. The couple have run several social enterprises, including Nashville's culture magazine Native and Taco Bike, a certified organic restaurant. They started Unicorn Goods, an online store, in November 2014, offering a large range of vegan goods across a number of categories using an affiliate model. CEO Cayla oversees the overall vision and strategy of the company, while CCO Dave, a former creative director of advertising company Young & Rubicam, oversees the creative vision of the brand. Dave is an industrial designer focusing on vegan manufacturing and animal-free design at the Rhode Island School of Design. In this interview, Cayla and Dave talk about why they chose to use an affiliate model for the business and the pros and cons of this approach, why they made the company a public benefit corporation, how collaboration and community building, including the creation of their brand ambassador program, the Unicorn Squad, has contributed to the success of the business, how using interns and volunteers in an ethical win-win scenario can be an affordable way to build your business, the benefits of being a PETA-approved business, the key questions to ask yourself when considering starting a business, and much more. Here's the interview with Cayla Mackey and Dave Pittman of Unicorn Goods. Hello, Cayla and Dave. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hello, it's great to be here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
No, very excited and looking forward to hearing about your new business, because there's some quite innovative and interesting things about it. So we're going to dig into that in a little bit. But first of all, the question I always kick off with everyone, because I love hearing these answers because we're all like mission-driven entrepreneurs, is what's your reasons for running Unicorn? What's your why?
So for both myself and Dave, we're both vegan, and we wanted to start something that was in line with our values, but also made being vegan easier. And that's really the driving force behind what we do. We believe that if it's easier to make ethical choices and if it's easier to be a vegan, that more people will make those decisions and the world will be a better place.
Fantastic. I can totally relate to that. It's like kind of business as a form of activism, because you're absolutely right. We do need to make it as easy as possible. So that's great. Fantastic. Tell us the story about the brand's name. Why Unicorn Goods?
Well,
it's a great name. It's lovely. I'm just curious how you came to choose it.
Yeah. Well, so I think on some level, well, there are a few answers to this. One is in part that Cayla has always loved unicorns, just as a symbol. I mean, I'd say they're her favorite animal, probably her totem. So I think we decided that whatever we did next, it must involve unicorns. And so whenever we went down the path with this, we had another name originally that we had to change for trademark reasons. And then we decided, hey, you love unicorns. You've always loved unicorns. Maybe we should call it Unicorn Goods. But then the thing that I think I would add to that is that there was this nice fit with the difficulty that we were having finding these vegan products. We sort of heard that they existed. We knew that they were out there. But, they were often very, very difficult to find. So we sort of decided, well, these products are really sort of unicorn products, and we want to make it easy to find them. So that's kind of another maybe more direct answer.
Fantastic. I love that. I love hearing the stories behind how people come up with their brand names, because it's all very different. Like some people take it very, very seriously and, spend a kind of hours brainstorming, and others are kind of like, oh, I'll just name it after my house or something. So it's great to hear that. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, and I would add to that I think the sort of secret reason, the third reason, is that there was something kind of bad about it. There was something that kind of didn't sound quite right when you say it. And I think, my background was advertising, and there's something about that I believe makes names more memorable or sort of stickier. So there was something appealing about the badness of the name.
Got it. Okay. Sweet. So tell us a little bit about starting up, some of the challenges. So when you first started out, because I think the company's been going just over 2 years or so now, what were some of your key challenges when you first started up the business?
So as a startup, we didn't have any investment initially. So we're entirely self-funded, and we bootstrapped the company from the ground up. This is our 6th business together. So
6th or 7th.
6th or 7th. We've done a couple of different things. So we're familiar with the struggles of starting a business on virtually no budget. I think that is an ongoing struggle. As a technology platform, we continue to keep our costs really, really low. And I think initially, in addition to funding, neither of us had really worked with a tech-heavy company like this before, and that continues to be a learning curve, especially for me. So I work on the day-to-day operations and management of the business, and for example, I'm teaching myself how to program so that I can update our code so that I know the platform better. Every day we're learning something new. We just implemented Salesforce, which is a software system for client management. We're just constantly learning how to run the operations. And I think the third thing that was a struggle for us in the first year especially was branding. Dave talked a little bit before about how we decided on the name Unicorn Goods. Before that, we had a more generic name. We weren't necessarily specifically vegan focused in our mission. We were kind of more broadly ethical. And what I love specifically in your book is you spend a whole section talking about using the word vegan or not and the importance of names. And we really thought a lot about what we wanted to be as a company. Are we trying to convince non-vegans to buy vegan products? Are we trying to trick them into buying vegan products? Or are we addressing a pain point? What's our value proposition? And we decided that the problem we're solving is vegans have a hard time buying things in line with their ethics. And so we made a really deliberate choice to bring vegan onto the homepage of our site. And we wanted to have a brand that really made the issue of ethical shopping, especially for vegans, fun and more approachable, so that shopping became less of a headache and more of a pleasure. Fantastic. I think those are the three biggest things.
Got it. I love that way you say, you're continuing to learn. And like when you first said, and I'm learning to program, I was thinking, what? But I like that. I get where you're coming from. It's like, particularly in the beginning, it's good to at least have a base. I mean, I don't know about programming. That kind of seems quite advanced, but just to kind of know like a bit of coding, like you say in the beginning, just so that you have some kind of understanding of the platform and of your whole business, of the different operations of your business, so that when you do get to then expand and hire someone, you kind of just know a little bit more about it. So I can certainly relate to that. I mean, I'm certainly not a tech person by any means, but do you know what I mean? I can obviously put my own blog posts up and I learn teensy little bits as you go along. So I think that's really, really great that you've done that. Now you've set up as a public benefit corporation. Tell us a bit about that and why you did that.
Sure. So as a social business, we're very much mission driven. We both were involved in social enterprises before, and I have a very strong background in social enterprise as a field. So we knew about the public benefit corporation filing, as well as B Corp, the independent organization that does a third-party certification. So when we looked into incorporating, we it wasn't really even a choice. We kind of said, of course, we're going to file as a public benefit corporation. As we think about growing, we're still a small company, but as we think about how big we'd like to be, we wanted to start off with a filing that accommodated growth and made sure that if we did bring on investors or scale in a way that is bigger than what we're doing now, that we maintained the ability to let our mission drive our decisions. And so being a public benefit corporation allows us to have the ability to make decisions based on our mission that might not be, the most financially advantageous decision. It allows for the people running the company to balance mission with profits. Whereas if we were just a normal corporation and we did, for example, go public and have shareholders, our sole obligation legally would be to maximize profits.
Oh, right. That makes such good sense. I'm really glad you brought that up because, you're right. And I know certainly from some other vegan business owners that I've interviewed, and some of them have been very much about, no, I don't want to, give up any shares in my company precisely for those kind of reasons, because you could be forced into going down or doing something that you may not be in line with your ethics. So that would basically mean then that anyone who decided to come on as an investor, or if, like you say, if you went public, it would legally, you've got those things in place around the social aspects of it, and so your ethics are kind of solidified in a way, which is really cool. Oh, that's fantastic. So in terms of how the store itself operates, so am I right in thinking that you don't actually keep any stock or ship it? You're a listing like catalogue site, and you've got affiliate arrangements in place, so people click through to a third party site to purchase and you get a percentage of that sale. Is that right?
Yes, it is. We sort of explored some other options in the process, but found that was given that we were starting with very little capital, that sort of seemed to make the most sense, especially because the problem that we were trying to solve was, making it easier for current vegans to find products that were in line with their ethics, but also to make it easier for non-vegans to find vegan products. If they sort of became curious or interested in this issue, we wanted to make it as easy as possible to find that stuff. And then I think also as a sort of additional angle in all of this, a big part of what we're trying to do is present veganism as a very mainstream sort of quote unquote normal thing. So we'd like, for people who think of vegan as a hippie, sort of, all the sort of stereotypes of vegans, we wanted to challenge those stereotypes and try to reframe it as something that people who don't otherwise think of themselves as being, particularly sort of alternative, could still sort of find valuable. And so with that, that meant finding a huge volume of products and finding a huge range of vendors. And the affiliate model that was sort of the easiest approach for us to have as many products and as many vendors on the site as possible.
Yeah, no, it's clever. Yeah. It's a very clever model. And I actually found, I was quite pleased. I had a little look, so I was clicking through yesterday and, and I found like glitter sneakers and I was like, oh, that's very cool. So I think you're succeeding in that. You are, you have, like you say, you have got a really good range of different types of vegan products that maybe you wouldn't necessarily find in other places. So that's fantastic. And that's a smart model as well. Like you say, if you haven't got, it really keeps your costs down, not having to, keep goods and ship them and what have you. So that's clever. So what are the challenges because we talked about the benefits in that model, which is fantastic. Are there any challenges involved in this affiliate model?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, one of the biggest challenges is that if somebody really wanted to spend years of their life or a ton of money, they could easily build exactly what we've built. Because I think what we're building is really a network. We're building a community of other vegan businesses or sort of mainstream businesses that are either accidentally or deliberately sort of making vegan products. And so in the process of that community building, that's really a ton of work, but it means that inherently our product is sort of is more replicable than if say we were building smartphones or something. And I think that if we were doing a traditional retail model, we would be making much larger margins, and we could do a lower volume. So, this affiliate approach really means that there are some risks that we face. I think, they would work against a business like ours, I guess.
Got it.
And then, so that's not incredibly eloquent, but
no, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. No, that's cool. So, in terms of your team, then, do you? How many employees, if any, do you have, or is it just the two of you, or how does that work?
So we have a team of about 7 people who volunteer their time to work on the platform. This involves, interns and people who did intern with us, who we asked to stay on board and have a little more responsibility. And then I am running the site full time, and Dave is actually in grad school right now, getting his degree in industrial design with a focus on vegan manufacturing.
Oh, cool.
So he is very involved in sort of the vision and branding and any creative output we generate. But right now we have anywhere at any time between 7 and 10 people. And we also have a brand ambassador program and sort of an extended network of supporters and bloggers.
Fantastic.
So we do a lot of community building. We have a unicorn squad, and then we have people.
So I was going to ask you about that. I just want to acknowledge that that's interesting that you use interns, which is quite good, because obviously they presumably get work experience and are mentored by you. So it's a good sort of exchange of skills.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are without people who cared about these issues working with us. So whenever we find someone who really gets the problem that we're addressing and wants to start a career in, vegan business or in the ethical product space, I really see that as an opportunity to help them get started in this area. It's really difficult, especially as a young college graduate or a young professional, to enter this space, because it's a very tight network of people that's dispersed around the world, but you can't necessarily go to the door of these businesses and peddle your resume. So we really look for people who care a lot about what we're doing.
Oh, I like that. I think that's really good for people to know that, if they can't maybe afford to take on paid staff in the beginning, that there are ways of doing it that, are not taking advantage of young people, but giving them an opportunity. And in return, like you say, you helping them and facilitating them. So I like that. That's great. So tell us about the Unicorn Squad. I love that name. It's great. Kind of got these images of like these kind of people with, look kind of like unicorns on this mission. So tell us a bit about that.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you get that. So Unicorn Squad was created by our team members collaborating, but specifically Casey Traverse, who's now a team member with us. She really headed up the design and implementation of this program. And it's a fantastic thing that we recently launched. So right now we have 8 Unicorn Squad members from around the world, and this is our brand ambassador program. So we started searching about a year and a half ago for people who had strong social media followings or blogs that embodied our ethos as a brand and represented the type of basically change that we were trying to create in the world. What we did is we reached out to them. We asked them if they were interested in collaborating with us, and we invited them to be a part of our website. And the benefits that they get from being affiliated with us is they get access to product offers for our brands. And then they also get an extended platform for their voice. Anytime they blog about something or mention us in a way that's relevant to our users, we try to give them attention and repost those posts. We offer them, personal development opportunities, and we try to give them as much support as possible to be a strong voice for change, especially in the vegan space. And this is also really great for our brands too. It's kind of a win-win. We tell our brands that we're an extension of their marketing department, basically. We're sort of an external marketing and advertising component of the businesses we work with. And one of the things we heard from brands is that they really wish that they had more PR and outreach, and that they could get their products into the hands of more people so that they could get feedback and also spread, the word about what they're doing. And this was a way for us to help them do that.
Oh, fantastic. Now, when you say that the Unicorn Squad get like special offers from brands, does that mean like a brand might send them like a freebie to review or something, or they get discounts if they want to buy something?
Absolutely. So we work with our brands to ask them if they'd like to offer products for review to Unicorn Squad members. And then when we do have a product that's on offer, we ask which squad members are interested, and we send it to them for review, and then we promote their review or their mentions of the product themselves. So the brands win because they get their products into the hands of real people, and then our squad members win because they get to experience, firsthand products that we feel like are really strong representations of what vegan products can be. So altogether, our Unicorn Squad social media influence reaches more than 500,000 people internationally. So it's sort of a testament to what we're trying to do with the company in general, which is to pool support for vegan products and to maximize impact by compiling everything in one place.
So do they get any financial advantage, the Unicorn Squad, or is it mainly that they're kind of extending their social reach?
Are you asking if we pay them?
Yeah, or do they get, because I know obviously you get the affiliate payment, and then if they had, say, a direct relationship, an affiliate relationship with a particular brand, they would obviously get that affiliate commission. So I'm just curious as to whether they get any kind of, financial benefit, as well as obviously raising their profile.
Sure. So we actually aren't paying them in any way. So they don't get an affiliate commission, or, they're not financially reimbursed in any way for promoting products more than they would otherwise. That's kind of on them. It's up to them. A lot of our squad members are trying to, grow their own brands, their own personal brand as a vegan spokesperson. So the main reason that they work with us is to get connections to brands that they otherwise wouldn't have access to, and we make those connections. But we aren't. Okay. Yeah, we don't offer, pay in any way. This is it's more of like a club or a society or support group for these really amazing, coincidentally, all young women right now who are trying to do good things, but might have barriers to actually interacting with brands that are trying to reach them as well.
Cool. No, that's great. All right, fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about, and I put it in quote marks, competition. So obviously now there's quite a diverse range of online stores selling vegan goods. Now some have been around for a long, long time, and as there's new ones popping up. So how do you go about standing out both within and outside the vegan business arena and constantly attracting customers?
So I think there are a few things going on there. I think some of it has to do with our approach to marketing on social media. And then I think some of it has to do with just the way that we've designed the company and the brand. So our offering is really unique in its scale and also in its focus. So, we like the idea of someone being able to find us through various channels, like let's say social media, and then ending up on our site and then realizing that they can find just about anything that they would ever want and know that it's all vegan. Because I think, as vegans, we all understand the struggle of trying to determine whether or not something is vegan when buying a product. I mean, just infinite label reading and emailing customer service and all of that. So we're trying to make that, much simpler. And I think the competition that's out there is either much smaller or much less focused. And so in both cases, I think that, that's a different experience for customers.
Got it. So I was going to ask you about, the whole concept of, instead of thinking about competitors, think about collaborators. And I know you're doing some collaboration with your Unicorn Squad and with your brands. What are your thoughts on that kind of concept of, don't think of anyone as a competitor, but as a collaborator?
Yeah, no, I think we absolutely believe in that. We started this because we saw a problem really a problem that we were experiencing, and no one else was really addressing it in the way that we thought it should be addressed. But at the same time, I mean, we quite literally, honestly, love all of the other businesses that are trying to solve the same problem that we're trying to solve. And I really think it's a case where you really couldn't have too many people working on this issue. So for us, I mean, everything that we do is really mission driven, and is really driven by, I mean, our very personal ethics. So for us, I think it's great when other people are doing it. With past businesses that we've done that were also sort of mission driven, we've always said that other people in the space might be addressing the same problem in different ways, and that we weren't against that at all. And we've seen growth even when our competitors grew. So we don't see any problem with having other so-called competitors in the space.
Got it. Now, I know that you state in one of your unique selling points is that you have the world's largest range of vegan goods. That's quite a bold claim. How did you go about making sure that was correct? Like, did you literally kind of go and count how many products other online stores had? How did that come about?
It's a little embarrassing, but yeah, and perhaps it was a waste of time. But we have actually counted, and the way that we've calculated it, we are actually by far the biggest vegan only store out there,
by a factor of about 5.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. I was curious, and then I dug into how your model. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. No, that's cool, and I appreciate your honesty. I would have probably done the same thing, in order to make a claim like that. It's like, you've done your due diligence. That's fair enough, So I think that's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And if someone out there listening has a bigger store, I challenge that, and B, feel free to let us know.
Well, and I think this actually ties back into what we were just talking about a second ago, where ultimately we would love to become irrelevant. I think the problem that we're trying to solve is we are trying to end animal suffering sort of at the hands of humans, to be made into products and to be made into food. And so if humans stop consuming animals, that would be a great thing, but it would also mean that we would no longer be relevant as a business. And I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's
the goal.
That's the dream. Like, I think it's really important that vegan business owners keep, that in mind. Like, if you're working in the social impact space or as a nonprofit, the goal is to make yourself irrelevant. I personally say, that would be a big relief. I could do something else.
Our lives would be a lot easier.
Our lives would be a lot easier.
It's true. It is true. That's what I love about vegan business owners is that, we are on that mission, and that we're probably the only group, well, not necessarily the only group, ethicals, but, I think genuinely ethical, mission-driven entrepreneurs, we're the only kind of types of business owners and entrepreneurs that actually do want to make ourselves redundant. Which I think is pretty cool. So that's awesome. Now, you guys, you've become a PETA approved vendor. Why did you decide to go for that certification, and what did it entail to get approved?
So that is something that we did within a month of starting the first iteration of the company, which is basically a blog. So, we didn't really share the initial story of how we started, but about 3 years ago, I decided to not buy any clothing that contained animal products, and I was vegetarian at the time. I think I had Googled wool and had realized that even as a vegetarian, it was very hypocritical for me to wear wool, and that it actually was doing a lot of harm to the animal. And then I started to make the connection between dairy and decided to apply my food ethics to my clothing. And it took me 6 months to find a pair of shoes. So it was extremely difficult. And one of the reasons is that there are very, a lot of companies don't even know what their products are made of. And then there's not a lot of transparency around some materials in products, especially when it comes to clothing. With food, you have to legally list ingredients. So you can shop vegan food pretty easily. But with clothing, I could order something that says it's synthetic and then get it in the mail and it's actually made from calf leather, and the company didn't even know. So within a month of blogging about this, we decided to sort of become a company. We said one of the ways that we can be as transparent as possible is by showing that in a very direct way through a certification. And we reached out to PETA, and it was a very easy process. It's a wonderful resource, and they make it very easy for companies like us to understand what the standards are. And then they give us a mark so that we can articulate what we're doing in a visual way to people. So I would highly recommend it for anyone. And we've actually led several of our brands to become certified as well.
Oh, fantastic. So the benefits that you get are that consumers recognize it and they can be comfortable and more likely to buy through your company.
Yeah, and we also, it's a great way to start a relationship with an organization that has ethics that we want to support. We work with PETA's corporate relations department, on a pretty regular basis, and we would like to direct more companies to work with them and to increase the visibility of vegan certifications in general. It's especially important for larger companies to look at that as a value added for their customers, the same way that the organic certification makes organic shopping easier for food for people who are interested in things like that.
Got it. And did PETA promote you to their membership?
Yeah, they did. So we're listed, as a PETA approved vendor. We're listed in a list on their website for the U.S. branch of PETA. And then we also work with them to publish content on their blog in ways that support the visibility of specifically vegan fashion and vegan clothing.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. So that leads us nicely into the kind of talking a little bit about marketing and PR, because that in itself is a really quite a cool way to team up with a non-profit organisation to, that's a win-win for everybody. So what have been some of the marketing strategies you've used to, grow the unicorn?
So I mean, it's funny. I think in some ways, the things that we've done might not even be considered marketing strategies. It's, but we'll call it that for a second. Just I'll pretend that that our work is like that. I mean, I think in bootstrapping, we've had to figure out how we can promote the company without really spending much money. Without spending much money at all. And so I think a lot of that has been, we've grown in a very, very organic way, and that's largely through social media, using the sort of free channels that exist out there, but also thinking about how we can get our name out there through organizations like PETA. Pretty early on, we partnered with the Dodo, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
Oh yeah. I know the Dodo.
So we met them pretty early on, and they liked what we were doing, and said that they weren't big on promoting the sort of vegan, using the vegan word because of it being sort of controversial or perceived as controversial, but that they totally bought into our mission and wanted to help us with that, and a number of other sort of animal and vegan oriented online publications, things like that. Cayla also is a pretty avid writer. She's been published a ton all over the place on all kinds of stuff. And so it made sense for her to get out there and publish a lot of articles about vegan wardrobes, vegan clothing, sort of how to, lead a more vegan lifestyle, through consumption of say, vegan cruelty-free cosmetics, or pointing out that vegan and cruelty-free aren't the same thing. Doing all those kinds of things. And so we've also seen a lot of traffic from, linked articles and essentially PR. And then also, in-person events too. We go to a lot of events where we promote just in person, just handing out little cards with our website on them, things like that. So Circle V Festival in Los Angeles.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah.
It looked amazing.
Yeah, and then the New York Vegetarian Food Festival, and then a number of other sort of vegetarian and vegan food festivals, which, really are just sort of vegetarian and vegan lifestyle festivals, but they still call them food festivals.
Got it. And it's funny you say that that's not markets, because I'm hearing it. That's obviously kind of it's social media marketing and this new thing or relatively new thing called content marketing, which you've been doing kind of organically. And it's interesting how, and you would probably know this, Dave, having come from an advertising background, how the whole concept of kind of marketing has changed over the years from what we consider to be quote traditional marketing. It's now becoming kind of quite sophisticated and innovative in a way. So I love that you've shared those strategies, which, like you say, are really kind of, apart from maybe paying to hire a booth at a festival or a stall, relatively low cost ways to market and get yourself out there, and which is great.
Yeah, and definitely on social media. I mean, I can't give enough credit to our team member Julia Morsi, who manages our Facebook page, and then Sarah Campbell, who manages our Instagram page. These two people specifically have really taken a lot of initiative and developed our voice and our presence. And they've also helped us define what we stand for as a company. And also Audrey Finocchiaro, who was previously with us and managed the sort of infancy of our social media. But we're only as strong as the people who work with us. And we've never outsourced our specifically our social media and our email newsletters. Those are all done by people who we have really strong relationships with, who care a lot about what we're doing and who are willing to take risks and make mistakes and learn from them and use this as like a good next step in their career, I would say.
Got it. Now, we touched on this a little bit earlier about the use of the word vegan in your marketing and branding materials. And everybody's got, like you say, there's a whole chapter in the book about it. And, I ask everybody this on the podcast and I get so many different answers depending on the kind of business they're in. So just talk us through that a little bit again. Because I know you mentioned you working with the Dodo, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a site that's all about animals. So they share lots of generally uplifting and positive stories about animals, animal rescue. And it's interesting that you say that they didn't really want to kind of use the word vegan, but you were still able to work with them even though you're a vegan company. So just talk us a little bit through about the prominence or how you use or otherwise the word vegan.
Yeah, and I want to let Dave answer this because this is something we continue to talk about, but Dave's definitely the person driving our marketing and advertising decisions. He's worked with Bob Isherwood, who's a former creative director of Saatchi & Saatchi, and he's worked with clients like the Red Cross and the UN. So he's really, before Unicorn Goods, has honed a lot of his thoughts on marketing and advertising from working with some of the world's biggest cause-related businesses. So I love that section of your book because it felt like I was having a conversation with Dave. It's really great that we're all thinking about this as vegan business owners, but it's something that we feel strongly about, and there are a lot of people who disagree with us. So, I mean, what do you think?
Cool.
Yeah.
Over to you, Dave.
Yeah, well, no. So I think for me, and I think for us, it was really, planting a flag. It was sort of, I think, like a declaration. We've talked about it a lot, and I think in the end we sort of always land on we shouldn't shy away from being vegan because we're trying to normalize being vegan. And if we sort of join I don't want to say the trend, but if we join the other people who are sort of embarrassed by being vegan, then we're sort of reinforcing the idea that it's something that we should be ashamed of, or something that's abnormal, or something that other people, can't get behind, that they would be sacrificing socially or something like that. So we want to really challenge that norm. And so for us, it's critical to have the word vegan, next to images and products that people sort of associate with mainstream fashion and mainstream sort of, a sort of mainstream lifestyle. And I use mainstream very loosely there just to mean sort of what people associate with sort of the majority, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you raised that, because something like that happened just this week. So at the moment, over here in Sydney, Australia, it's Mardi Gras time. So the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras has a huge parade, and they've partnered with Meat and Livestock Australia, and they're having this horrible float where they're dancing around, called the Lamb Dance, and celebrating eating lambs. So anyway, I and another person got this petition going, and people started, obviously commenting on social media. And it was interesting because one person said, "Oh, but what are we going to do if everything's vegan? Who's going to make our dancing shoes? What would they be made of? Onion skin?" And it was so funny. And I just kind of commented to say, hey, actually, there's these really cool, like developments in biotech, and amazing alternatives to leather, and you can have glitter and sparkle and everything. And I think that really kind of went to show that we still have to get over these stereotypes that as vegans we just kind of wander around in canvas slippers. And so I like the fact that you're doing it when we associate vegan with, for me, sparkle and bling, or, stylish and fabulous. It's really important. So I'm glad that you shared that, because that really, just reminded me about that today. So that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit. So you've obviously had some experience, quite a bit of experience with running different social enterprises. For people who are listening today, and, perhaps they're just, they've got a job, they're working the sort of 9 to 5, but they would really love to run and start an ethical and a vegan business. What advice would you give them before making that jump?
That is a really good question. And I love this section in in all of the interviews that I've listened to, yours and otherwise, because they're always so different. I think that, I would say, having done this a few times now, that you're never really ready. Like, you never really know enough to feel completely ready. And so I think a lot of starting a business is trusting yourself and asking the right questions. And for me, those questions are, is this something I really care about? Is this something I could see myself doing for the next 10 years? And is this something I'm willing to sacrifice almost everything else in my life for? I mean, it really has to take a priority above everything else. Otherwise, it will never really happen. I think the biggest thing that entrepreneurs can do is to decide that you're going to do something, and then just work toward that end. It's really difficult to keep working on something every day if you have to wake up and convince yourself to work on it. After having been a serial social entrepreneur and making a lot of mistakes, I've realized that the business is only as strong as I am mentally. It is a mental game in a lot of ways. And I don't know, Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, no, and I would just throw in there that Cayla and I have this concept that we throw around a lot that we call punk entrepreneurship. And I think the lesson
punk entrepreneurship. That's cool.
Yeah, we like sort of the analogy of punk bands, or all the other sort of punk scenes within other forms of art and culture that have existed over the years. Sort of DIY movement, various different kinds of anarchist movements. And I think, for us, a lot of it is, since these kinds of businesses are, driven by values, they're driven by principles, way more than they're driven by profit, that I think that they're unique in that way. And what it means is that I think if somebody's really committed to the idea of veganism, then, that is a beautiful place to start. So then from there, if they have some idea of some business that they think they can make happen, I think in contrast to a lot of the other startups out there, I mean, non-vegan sort of mainstream startups, apps and things like that, a lot of times there's an idea, and then a founder goes around looking for money, sometimes for years, trying to figure out, how am I just going to build the first iteration of this thing? And I think that if you go into it with, I'm a vegan, I'm really obsessed with this issue and trying to make an impact, on the issue. And I have this idea, but it would require $1 million. But if they stop and think, oh, well, actually, maybe I can do it in this way. And if they can really design it in a way that they can do it without a lot of capital, then, by looking at the scale, by looking at the sort of personnel requirements, by looking at the actual business model, they can find ways to actually do things for a lot less money, which then I think allows a lot more freedom and also greatly increases their chance of getting it off the ground. And they can sort of pursue that sort of, if they think of themselves as like a punk band that's just trying to like get their demo heard or get their EP heard by listeners, that sometimes those bands get really, really big globally, but they start in a garage somewhere. So I would say don't let a lack of capital scare you. Just be smart about how you do it, and don't give up on your principles. That staying true to your values, to your ethics, to your principles can actually be help you see business opportunities that other people might not see.
And I think you interviewed on the podcast, I believe there's an episode with the founders of Uptons. Is that you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Nicole. Yeah, that's Nicole and Dan.
I think they like completely embody this idea because they, I think he had used his house as collateral for getting a loan.
Yes.
And he's, very strongly believes that he does not want to bring on investors, and they committed from the very beginning to being self-owned and small. And I know a lot of people, will use credit cards, which is one way of doing things. But I think especially, we're both in the startup space. A lot of our friends currently or in the past have worked for startups. A lot of our friends own their own companies. We're kind of in that world. And there's this really weird thing that's happened in the startup world where getting funded has become, equated to being successful. And that's not the case. Getting funded means you got someone to loan you money, and making the business profitable and growing is successful. And those are not the same thing. And so I think it's important.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's such good advice that you've shared. There's so many good nuggets there. I'm just going to touch on them just to kind of, highlight them. And one, I loved what you said, Cayla, about you're never really ready. I think that's a really important one. And I don't want to generalize in gender, but I think that's certainly an issue that a lot of women struggle with, because they're kind of like, oh, well, I don't know enough, therefore I can't launch yet, or I can't do this yet. So I love that you've touched on that there's always something to learn and to kind of go for it. I think that was wonderful. And I love the analogy of the punk band, the punk entrepreneurship. Like, yeah, absolutely. Instead of just sitting around waiting for someone to throw a bunch of money at you, to, actually get out there and do something. And I know also as well, some investors that I've spoken to actually like people to have had some kind of experience and maybe even a failure, because it shows that, you've got skin in the game and that you're prepared to get in there and get stuck in, rather than just kind of sitting back and say, hey, I've got a cool idea, give me money. So I think that was some fantastic advice there. I really love that.
Of course.
And that's great. Now, you touched on, interestingly, the funding like that we were talking about. And I know you've mentioned that with Unicorn to date, you've been self-funded, but you're perhaps open to investors because you've set up with a public benefit corporation. Would that be fair to say?
I think that's fair to say, that we're open if the right partner comes along. We're committed to doing whatever it takes to make the idea work as effectively as possible. And if that means continuing to do what we've been doing for the last 2 years, that's fine. If there's an opportunity to have more of an impact in a way that makes sense from a sustainability perspective, that's what we'll do. What we won't do is be short-sighted about financial gains and take on a partner that ends up hurting the company in the long run. We want to be around for a really long time. And so we're thinking in terms of decades, not in terms of years.
Awesome. Now, what skills from your previous jobs and careers have been useful in running Unicorn? I know obviously, Dave, you've very much strong background in advertising and marketing, so that's obviously a bonus. What about you, Cayla?
So Dave and I have started every business that we've done, with very few exceptions, together. When I graduated from college, our first company was a media company in Nashville that is still in existence and is in the family. It's been around for 5 years now. It's a monthly print magazine. And that, at least for me, and I think for Dave as well, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, it's where I learned a lot of what I know today about business and how a business is run and how a business works together. And I started out as a salesperson, and I sold some of the first advertisements for the magazine to the point that it ended up actually becoming a financially successful company. So I learned from the ground up, how important being financially sustainable is. And
that's a good lesson.
yeah. And I learned how important it is to care about your clients and to actually meet a need in the community. And that's something we've definitely carried into Unicorn Goods. We also both started this is when we were vegetarian, but a vegetarian taco bike in Nashville. That was the first certified organic restaurant in the South. So going back to certifications like PETA approved, obviously we don't run that company anymore, partly because we're vegan, but we realized how important it was to go through a certification process and actually learn a lot about what we're doing before we start to sell to people. At least for me, I think those are some of the most formative experiences.
So you're really serial entrepreneur. So you've not actually been employed. Have you gone like literally from college straight to being entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I wanted to be unemployed when I graduated from college. So I failed like multiple times over. But Dave had it,
Well, yeah. So I mean, straight out of college for me, I worked for a few years in the sort of the cause-related marketing and communications arena. And then after leaving the magazine that Cayla and I started together, I went to work for like a big multinational ad agency that's based in New York. But I opened an office for them in Nashville, and that was really for the reason that I got that job was really building on the experience that I'd had straight out of college, which I was very lucky to. Cayla mentioned him, but I'll mention him again. A really famous creative director who was the worldwide creative director of Saatchi & Saatchi, who's actually Australian, Bob Isherwood. Really took me, he took me under his wing and literally worked with me face to face every day, taught me everything I know about advertising, and that his lessons continue to help me every day. So I really can't give credit to him.
I love that, and it's interesting you say that because I used to work for a magazine here called B&T, which is used to be a weekly print. I think they may be online only now, I'm not sure, but it's basically an industry magazine for the advertising and media industries. And I remember I used to have to, as well as like sub-editing, and checking it, I used to have to write little news briefs. And I remember I used to get so annoyed whenever I had to like write up a news story saying that like a lamb ad or a meat ad had won, a prize or an award, and I'd have to type it up. And there'll be all these like big companies involved. But what I like about what you've said is that you took all that training and learning that you got from this big agency, and now you're applying it in the ethical space, which I think is really important to express, because I know I've seen some people like in vegan forums say, oh, I've just got my foot in the door at this advertising agency and one of their clients has a marine park and I'm feeling really conflicted, and people were giving them advice, and some people would say, look, try and stick with it as much as you can, learn as much as you possibly can, because then you can use those skills to do good. So I like the fact that you're a wonderful example of that, Dave.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, and I actually had Y&R, the company that I worked for, actually had Hillshire Farms and Ballpark Franks, among other sort of horrible meat-oriented companies. But I was lucky that they never made me work on anything that I wanted to abstain from. So
that's good.
Yeah, so
cool.
I was lucky.
I think this poor young woman's having to work on SeaWorld at the moment, so she's obviously feeling very conflicted. Sure. But no, I love that you've been able to take those and really, use them for good, which is fantastic. So just final couple of questions now. And then, what would you say have been the key lessons you've learned through running, well, not just Unicorn, but running your businesses to date?
That's a great question. I think that when I was younger as an entrepreneur, I thought that I needed to do everything myself, and that the best entrepreneurs are totally self-reliant and self-sufficient. And I realized from burning out multiple times over. I went through a series of, really horrible years that I hope are behind me, where I would do something very passionately and just burn out 6 months later, and then I would crash and have to take a break, and then I'd do something else really passionately and burn out. I realized that the best leaders rely on other people a lot and are very, very vulnerable and humble, and are always learning, and they're kind of living the life of an amateur instead of the life of an expert. So I've tried to adopt that more. Another thing that I've learned is that mental health is way more important than I previously thought. I ignored what was going on inside my head, especially as an entrepreneur, for a really long time. And I think that led to burnout. So where I am right now, personally, it's getting really personal. I'm spending a lot more time really taking care of myself. Especially for vegan entrepreneurs, this is something I really struggled with in the beginning, and I thought it was going to prevent me from doing unicorn goods long term. It's really difficult to work as a vegan entrepreneur because we not only wake up and have the struggles of running a business, but we have the emotional struggles of living in a really violent reality every day. And so being able to take an optimistic and pro-human approach to at least the work that I do is extremely important. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get up and work every day.
No, I love that you've shared that. I think that's really important for people to hear that, because you're absolutely right. And I'm similar to you. I tend to be a kind of all or nothing kind of person. So sometimes, I'll get into something and I'll just kind of go with it. And you're right. You get to a point where it's just not sustainable, and you either, like you say, have to take a break and what have you. And even just this week is a great example of that, because what with this petition, I ended up getting really behind. So I thought, I'll just compromise on my sleep and catch up this weekend. So I'm guilty of that sometimes. I think we all are. So I think that's really important.
Definitely.
To hear that, because you can only do that mission and help people, help animals, help the planet by being in it for the long haul and making it sustainable. I think sometimes, as well as people who come from activist backgrounds who are running businesses, we kind of feel like we almost feel guilty for taking time out and enjoying ourselves. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here, lazing about or doing this or that and the other, and there's people dying, there's animals being tortured, I should be doing something else. And I think we have to kind of get over that and give ourselves permission to say, you know what, we have to do that, like you say, that mental health self-care in order to be effective over the long run.
Absolutely.
We're passionate
Absolutely. About. And I think that there are a lot, many other very intelligent people who will also agree with you. We connected with Peter Singer, who's one of the world's leading experts in ethics and especially vegan ethics, and also Melanie Joy, who wrote the book Why We Love Dogs.
Oh yeah, I know Melanie.
Yeah, they're both great, but we got to speak with them and connect with them mostly because we wanted to know how they did their work every day. And we literally asked them, like, how do you keep writing about this topic? And how can you bear to do this as a career? And both of them said very similar things, which is once you've exposed yourself to reality and made a decision to change, you don't need to keep re-exposing yourself. You just need to move forward. And I don't know if Dave would have anything
and I would say that Peter Singer also added to that he felt that his work was incredibly important, to the lives of others, and that even though it was painful for him to do some days, that it ultimately gave his life a lot of meaning, and really enriched his life in ways that not doing the work wouldn't. Sorry for the negatives there. I'm not sure if I got that right, but
no, I
so he felt that was really important. And if it's okay to add, I had a couple other little things that have hit me over the last decade. And I would second Cayla's point that other people are incredibly important and that you can't go it alone. Sleep, food, and exercise are also important, and often the first things to go when you start a business. But you just have to find time to give your body and your mind what it needs. I think also thinking long term and thinking sort of in a big picture way, and not thinking about how to make something successful immediately. And then I think one of the big things for me too is not really chasing success, but actually in some cases even trying to fail, you can actually succeed. And if you try to fail and you fail, then you succeed. And if you try to fail and you succeed, well, then you just succeeded. So you sort of can't lose.
Oh, that's fabulous! I love that.
Yeah.
I love
and
that.
So
we should make that a meme.
Yeah. Well, I have to give a little bit of credit there too. So that's sort of one of Bob Isherwood's big things. And he got it from Malcolm McLaren, who sort of created the Sex Pistols.
Oh,
yeah. So it ultimately has its genesis in punk rock. But I think it's a really important point that if you're doing something that you love and that you care about, you'll probably get good at it. And as long as you're not trying, if you're not too self-conscious and not trying too hard to succeed, then your chances of success are much, much greater.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I think that's a perfect note to end on. That's brilliant. You've both been amazing. I've really enjoyed our interview today. You've shared so many fantastic nuggets of wisdom. Some of those have certainly resonated with me, and I'm sure they will with our listeners. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your expertise, Cayla and Dave. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So that was Cayla Mackey and Dave Pittman from Unicorn Goods. You can find out more at unicorngoods.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 60. Now for our Vegan Business News Roundup. A new monthly vegan market showcasing plant-based goods in London, UK has been announced. The Hackney Downs Vegan Market in the city's East End is a collaboration between popular blogger Sean O'Callaghan, also known as Fat Gay Vegan, and Hackney Downs Studios' Eat, Work, Art project. From the 18th of March this year, that's 2017 if you're listening in the future, it will be held every third Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Hackney Downs Studios on Amherst Terrace. Now, what's particularly progressive about this project is that Fat Gay Vegan has committed to ensuring that 75% of stallholders he's responsible for curating go to people often overlooked at mainstream vegan events, such as Black and minority ethnic, women, LGBTQ, and those with disabilities. Regular well-known traders will feature alongside visiting stallholders, with the rest of the stalls going to resident artists and manufacturers located within Hackney Downs Studios. What a fantastic collaboration, and I'm really loving the intersectional approach that Sean is taking with this project to give prominence to business owners from all walks of life, particularly from marginalised communities. To keep up to date with the market and inquire about hiring a stall, you can head over to the Facebook event page, and there's a link to this on the show notes page for this podcast on the Vegan Business Media website. Food Fight, the vegan grocer in Portland, Oregon, has opened a second location, reports Katu. Owners Emiko Badillo and her husband Chad Miller opened their first store at 21st and Southeast Division Street in 2003 and then moved to Southeast 12th and Stark Street. They share a building with other vegan businesses, Herbivore Clothing, Scapegoat Tattoo and Sweet Pea Baking Company, earning the place the nickname the Vegan Mini Mall. The second Food Fight opened recently in Northeast Halsey Street in the up-and-coming Gateway neighbourhood. Like the original store, the new Food Fight will stock a range of popular vegan alternatives, including coconut bacon, haggis, yes, there's a thing as vegan haggis, vegan caviar, meatless jerky and sandwiches. So this is great news. I particularly like the quote by Chad about the types of food products they carry. He said, "We try to make it seem less like self-flagellation, self-sacrifice, and make it a bunch of fun food." Amen to that. I always like to get people to focus on what they're gaining by going vegan rather than seeing it as some form of loss. And it's great to see this vegan business expand. Cork in Ireland is set to get its first vegan bakery, reports the Evening Echo. My Am Vegan Bakery is owned by Sarah Murphy, who's already secured a unit where she plans to offer pop-up restaurant evenings, workshops and music sessions while selling a range of vegan sweet treats. Her donuts are already on sale at Oh My Donut every Tuesday through Saturday. Murphy's currently running a fundraiser on GoFundMe to raise money to fit out the unit with a counter and a kitchen. And what's interesting about this story is that the local newspaper has reported on Sarah's plan and even included a link to the fundraiser. Now, media won't always do this, but if it's an interesting and relevant enough angle, they will. Now, in this case, the fact that Sarah's already secured a premises and it will be Cork's first vegan eatery worked in her favour. Finally, an innovative vegan cafe has opened in Ithaca, New York, with a Star Trek theme, reports Veg News. 10 Forward, great name, which opens in late March, will be the permanent premises of popular Star Trek-themed mobile food vendor Star Truck. Another fabulous name, love it. The menu is set to feature comfort foods such as baked goods, banana-based milkshakes, soups and sandwiches, along with local products from Ithaca Tofu and Susie's Seitan. Owner Tammy Olewski has taken the space of a shuttered cafe above Autumn Leaves bookstore, where she plans to run game nights and other activities. I love this. I'm a little bit of a Trekkie. I really like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And this is such a unique point of difference for a business. So let's hope it lives long and prospers. I know you probably saw that coming. I couldn't help myself. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more resources, including details of my media and PR consultations, copywriting, editing and proofreading services to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.